Good evening, and welcome to the 2011 Annual Dinner and Awards Banquet. My name is Katrina Bailey, and I am the Executive Director of the Connersville-Fayette County Chamber of Commerce. I would like to start off by thanking everyone for attending this evening. The attendance is the largest that I can ever remember. At this time, I would like for the 2011 President to please stand, Donna Stern. Where are you at, Donna? Oh, there she is. Thank you, Donna. This year's president is Melissa Matney. If she could please stand. Here's Slipper. Woman power at the Chamber of Commerce, right? Now, I have several men on my board also. I am proud to announce that we have many deserving nominees for this award in our audience tonight. Your success, dedication, and achievements have not gone unnoticed, so congratulations to all of our nominees. I would also like to give a great big thank you to First Merchants Bank for being our corporate sponsor of the banquet again this year. I also want to thank our many other sponsors and donors who have generously supported this event. Those donors and sponsors will be named throughout the program. Speaking of generosity, what do you guys think about the silent auction items that have been donated? Pretty cool, huh? Be sure to place your bids on the items after dinner because the auction will close before the awards program can begin. We will give you a 5-minute warning before the close of the auction to give you enough time to increase your bid. So please open up your pocketbooks. Before we have the invocation, I would like to give one more shout out to my diplomat committee. I would like to introduce you to all of them. When I call your name, please stand. Jim Birch, Mila Faber, Colina Frame, Doug Hornsby, Carol Hunter, Steve Kreider, Kelly Pierce, Shirley Risch. You guys have to stay standing. I guess I didn't tell you that. Stay standing, kids. And Melinda Sudoff. Thank you so much for all you do. At this time, I would like to introduce you to the Reverend Gerald Holmes, who will give the invocation. Please enjoy your meal and program.
And now let us pray. Heavenly Father, we are thankful for this large gathering of people. I pray a special blessing this evening on Katrina Bailey, our Executive Director, the Board of Directors, the diplomats, her staff, and everyone that made this evening possible. Heavenly Father, we ask for special favor and blessing upon our speaker tonight, Senator Richard Lugar. We pray that this evening would be sweet and special. We ask your blessing upon our meal. And of course, we ask all these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Welcome, everyone. It's a pleasure to see such a full house tonight, and I have a feeling you're not here to hear me speak. So we'll get right along with the happenings of the past year of our chamber. The community involvement. If you're not involved with the chamber, you're missing out on a lot. We're part of the Comprehensive Plan Steering Committee, Historic Preservation, Main Street, Ivy Tech Community College Advisory Board, Dropout Prevention Coalition, the Whitewater Technical Career Center Advisory Committee. We help support our mayor and a couple of other board members to go to China this year. We also are supporting the legislative breakfasts that are usually held at our senior center. And the past year, we've done some network at noon. We're going to be changing that this year, and it's going to be business roundtable discussions. So Katrina is very, very good about sending out broadcast emails, and we invite each of you to come to these. It's a great business networking time, and it's just a brief lunch, and so watch your emails for that. That's another big benefit of being a member of the chamber is the emails. The advertising is free, and it goes out to 200 plus members. So if you have something that you really want to get out to the community, get it to Katrina. She'll get the job done for you. Also, you'll have a complimentary listing on the website for the chamber. And I want to say that Katrina has really made this year, I just kind of show up and she gives me an agenda and we go with it. And she's just really made my past year a pleasure to have been a president of the chamber, and hope that I can continue to participate on the board. And that's all I've got to say because she told me to keep it brief. At this time, I would like to introduce our mayor, Leonard Urban, if you will come up.
Well, I think we all know why we came tonight, why we had such a big crowd. It wasn't to hear Donna or me. It was to hear our speaker. I have the honor, which I've had several times, to introduce this young man, and she didn't offer us much light. I don't know what you did. I don't know what you did about the light, Katrina, but us old men have to have more light to read. So I'm going to have to kind of wing it. I could tell you that this man that came to speak to us tonight was a former mayor of Indianapolis 2 times. He has the birthright of Unigov. He knows how to do it because he put it together. Indianapolis is still running in high gear because of what he did many years ago. He graduated the top of his class in high school, the top of his class when he graduated from college. And if I could read the paper, I'd tell you which one. He's a Rhodes Scholar. So I have to do this from memory, Senator. But he's a Rhodes Scholar. He's been married 55 years. He has 4 children. He has 13 grandchildren. He's been on the Foreign Relations Committee. He's known all over the world. And he and Senator Nunn put away thousands of nuclear warheads when he worked on that project. And it's still happening today. Those nuclear warheads are being put away, making it safer for you and I and our children and grandchildren. I could go on and on. He has hundreds of honorary degrees from different colleges. But the important thing tonight that I want to tell you is that in 2008, when I was just a fumbling mayor, well, many of you think I'm still fumbling, I went to Washington because we were trying to lure a company named Garden Motors to Congress. And I made an appointment at his office and went down there. And we were greeted with open arms. What can we do for you? Now here's a little guy that was a funeral director in this little town, and he wants to know, what can I do for you? You're from Indiana, I need to help you. He assigned a person to us immediately. She left with us, went down to the law center where we were showing the police car, stayed with us, went back. On 2 other occasions, I've gone to Washington, and I get the same treatment. This little old mayor from this little old town in Indiana. Now, his critics say that he doesn't know about Indiana. Let me tell you, this man knows about Indiana. On our first visit, I sat down, and I said, Senator, you won't remember, but you and I have gone to Waterloo Road back in the 70s, passing out apples. He said, I remember it. We had a Chevrolet station wagon, so don't try, because he remembers it. Believe me, I saw him down at the pre-meeting we had tonight. He said people tried to trick you. Oh, you won't remember me? Oh, yes, I remember. He started saying, so don't try to trick you. What I'm trying to tell you, he has done a wonderful job helping Congressman Indiana today. He has done everything he can do to make I just said to him quietly, I said, Senator, could you get Pete Bell and I an appointment to see the Secretary of Energy, that we might go down there and talk to him ourselves? Immediately took a piece of paper out of his pocket, took his pen, and began to write himself a note. When he goes back to Washington next month, he says, I don't guarantee it, but we'll try. Now that's the kind of senator we got. Most respected, the longest ever being here from Indiana. I've known Tom in seniority, no one around the world. He came tonight to speak to you. Senator Richard Lugar, give him a Connersville Fayette County welcome.
Mayor Leonard Erman, you have given me a wonderful welcome, and I'm so grateful to be your guest tonight. What a tremendous attendance of enthusiastic people who mean so much to Connersville, to the county, to the state, to our nation. And I want to share with you this evening some thoughts that I hope will resonate and create even more conversation, good counsel and advice as we try to work with you to do the nation's business. I would just say, first of all, that as I have toured the state, we have two objectives that come out very clearly, whether it's from official polling by organizations or political campaigns or by word of mouth. And that is that Hoosiers are deeply concerned about jobs. You are deeply concerned about jobs. I inquired of the mayor this evening, what is the unemployment rate? 13.5%. Rivaling, as he pointed out, occasionally Elkhart County back and forth. This is huge and disastrous, really, in terms of the morale of those who are not employed, their families, young people who are concerned about the future. It is paramount on my mind with regard to our entire state, as a matter of fact. And it's seconded only by the other major concern that comes before the Congress, but it's certainly pointed to by Hoosiers, and that is a fear that our nation has a $15 trillion debt, that in the year in which we are now operating, we are running up another $1 trillion of debt. In essence, that federal government spending is virtually out of control, and that this clearly means a potential disaster, not only in the financial world, but in our competition with other countries, our ability to provide security for ourselves and for others who count upon us. Those two issues are so paramount that, at least in listings that I have seen from everybody's polling, almost everything else is marginalized to single digits. Now, in fact, that's not the way the world works, and tonight I've been deeply interested in visiting with people about education in this area. Been deeply concerned about the condition of the roads and highways and the transportation system, the infrastructure. I've been deeply concerned, as many have asked questions about the rest of the world, because there is a rest of the world out there. Whether it be the problems potentially of nuclear development in Iran and reactions of Israel and the United States, the working out of so-called Arab Spring, the problems with China, the problems that in the event we do have conflict in the Middle East and the Straits of Hormuz are closed, what will that mean with regard to the energy requirements of our country? Already we hear many rumors and some people authoritatively saying that the price of gasoline at the pump is going to be $4 by the holidays. and that may not be the end of it. It goes onward and upward, that already prices in most cities in the country are 30 or 40 cents higher than they were and have been all the way through this year thus far. That is bad news. People who may not be interested in the abstract issues certainly get to be interested in price at the gas pump. So with all this in mind, let me begin by saying that there are some specific battles, or to state it another way, attempts to make progress in which I'm involved, many of you are involved, and as I say, I look forward to your good counsel about how we can be more effective. First of all, to take up the budget. The problem in part is, of course, we have had a grim recession in the country as a whole. But secondly, during this current administration, we have not had a federal budget. One has not been passed for the first 3 years, and we are now in the fourth. And you ask, well, how can this be? The state of Indiana has a budget. Connersville has a budget. Every unit has budgets. How does the federal government get by with this? Well, it's something called CRs, continuing resolutions. And the idea is that you really pick up, essentially, the budget of the last year of the Bush administration. And to use an overworked cliche, kick the can down the road. In essence, you have the same level of spending, about the same things you're spending it for the next 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, a year, whatever the tide will bear at that point. Occasionally, there are emergencies in the world that demand attention for our armed forces. And as a result, we have an emergency appropriation for defense. And on occasion, there'll be another emergency that will come up, and sort of out of order, a very special debate may occur. But most frequently, what happens is the normal appropriation bills, there are 13 of them every year. We used to go through the process of having hearings in the committees, having specific resolution of each of these areas, and debate and amendments. Most likely in the last 3 years, each time, the best thing to describe it has been that the bills were all stacked up in a huge bundle of thousands of pages. It was called an omnibus appropriation bill. There was a final up or down vote, one way or the other, and usually it had to be up or the whole situation would have collapsed. This past year, a breakthrough occurred. The House of Representatives changed parties. Republicans came in with a very large majority, and Congressman Paul Ryan of Wisconsin became the chairman of the House Budget Committee. Congressman Ryan is a scholar of the budget, and he demonstrated that working with his committee to provide a budget which he claimed would cut $6.4 trillion of spending in the next 10 years of time. That was certainly exciting to hear about, although the controversies involving all the components were clearly still there. And Paul Ryan also began a debate which we will need to have as a country. He said that in the Medicare situation, those who were 55 and over would continue to receive the same program. But those that were 55 and under would receive a different program, and one that would be devised in the beginning to be substantially less costly for forthcoming decades to the federal government. Those of you who have been around a while know one of the old bromides of politics is that Medicare and Social Security are the third rail of politics. Touch it and you die. And many people wishing not to have a premature political death have chosen really not to touch it. As a matter of fact, people give all kinds of speeches about excessive spending, about trillions of deficit and so forth, without mentioning that about 70% of the budget is Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, and the defense budget. And these are areas in which most members have not wished to explore. Right now, we are discussing about $500 billion of change in our defense budget. To say the least, that's controversial at a time in which there are all sorts of potential dangers for our country and the world. But Ryan touched Medicare, and immediately Democratic foes said, okay, we've got you Republicans. You had the temerity to get in and begin talking about Medicare. And Harry Reid, the Democratic leader in the Senate, as a matter of fact, came over and said to us, Senators, you Republicans now are going to have a chance to show your badge of courage, because I'm going to introduce the Ryan plan as the budget for the Senate. And if it passes, then finally we have a budget. And he did, in fact, do just that. Now, 40 Republicans voted in favor of the Ryan plan. I was one of them. 7 against it. But then all Democrats voted against it. There are 53 of them in the Senate, a majority. And, of course, the resolution failed. Whereupon Mitch McConnell, the Republican leader, stood up and said, okay, we're going to have a vote on the Obama budget. Well, people looked at each other quizzically as to what is the Obama budget? Where is it? No one knew, of course, but Mitch said not to worry. We're going to have a vote. And as a matter of fact, on that resolution, all the Republicans voted against the budget, and all the Democrats voted against it, lost 97-0. That cleared the deck for another year of any budget. Now, this year we have another chance. Congressman Ryan is picking up the pieces, putting together another budget. In fairness, this time he has Senator Ron Wyden, a Democrat from Oregon, who is working with him on the Medicare situation, with recognition that at some point we're going to have to think through the actuarial problems, as well as the joy that when Franklin Roosevelt started Social Security, the average American died at about 65. One could say in very cold-blooded terms there were as many winners as losers with regard to Social Security. Half got some benefits and half did not live to get the benefits. But now the average American is slated to die at about 85. There, thank goodness, are a great deal more of us living and a great deal of us collecting. And this is true on the Medicare side even more graphically, with the largest expenditures usually in the final years of our lives, quite apart from preventative medicine all the way through. But I mention this not simply to condemn the whole process and to give another flowering speech about how we really got to grab a hold of America or something. Specifically, Paul Ryan is once again drafting a budget. Kent Conrad, the Democratic chairman on the Senate side of the budget, would like to do that, but Harry Reid has decided he doesn't want Kent Conrad to do that, and Kent is totally frustrated. So we'll be voting again, I suspect, on the Ryan budget. I hope that I and others can be more persuasive this time. I think it's imperative that we turn the thing around, we bend the curve, and then we do something else. And that is sort of set the metric that I think is going to be constitutionally so important, namely, that we pass a constitutional amendment to balance the budget. Now, I have voted 17 times for constitutional amendments to balance the budget. It's not a new idea. We had a chance last year, and we will have a chance, I believe, again this year. And I'll try to be as persuasive as I can, because at some point, we have to take that step, and then to send that constitutional amendment back to the states, where legislatures will have to deal with it favorably to change our Constitution. But there really has to be that kind of a standard, in my judgment, even as we work in the Congress to cut the trillions of spending, to bend the curve, and to move back in that direction. And I treat the subject that way because I think we have to have confidence and optimism and hope. It is so imperative that we solve this set of problems. Now, secondly, we've had a dispute recently, and this is not the be-all and end-all with regards to either the jobs issue or the energy independence issue. But it's an important current debate, and that refers to the Keystone XL pipeline. I became aware of the pipeline predicament because friends at the State Department said that the President and the White House had sent over to the State Department a proposal by a Canadian firm to build 1,700 miles of pipeline from northern Canada all the way down to the Gulf, to invest $7 billion in our country, to employ 20,000 people to construct the pipeline now. Plans have been out there for 3 years. The State Department, for some reason, has been studying it for almost 3 years. I think they were weary of the process, and they sent it back over to the White House. Whereupon, a huge demonstration occurred in Washington, D.C. The Washington Post estimated that thousands of people on a Sunday surrounded the White House at the gates and began shouting and condemning the pipeline and shouting at the President to stop the thing cold. Now, there are, sure, in the thousands, a variety of reasons. But the one that finally came forward, and the one we have been debating in the Congress, is fairly straightforward. The people that wanted to stop the XL pipeline were not necessarily talking about the water aquifer in Nebraska that might be endangered, because the legislature of Nebraska had recommended another route and the XL people had accepted that. They were not really talking about particular safety situations environmentally. What they said fundamentally is we do not want this huge amount of oil coming from Canada into the United States, because we don't want any more oil coming into the United States. Any more oil. Well, you say, well, now, hang on for a second. And they would say, don't hang on for a second. The fact is that fossil fuels, oil, coal, natural gas, create CO2 and other noxious gases that infect the atmosphere, that are clearly going to cause a man-made climate change catastrophe for our children and our grandchildren. And this is as good a time as any to bend that curve the other way and to stop it. Now, this comes as a shock to many Americans who, if they were worried about prices of gasoline at the pump this summer, really would have something to worry about in a hurry. It comes at a time, as a matter of fact, that many are predicting that despite all ways of attempting to prevent conflict in the Middle East, the Straits of Hormuz outside Iran may be closed. Certainly when the Vice President of China came 2 weeks ago, and I had the privilege of visiting with him, the Chinese take this very seriously. They want every drop of that oil. It's an existential problem for the running of their country economically and down to the heating of the homes of people who moved from the rural areas into the city. The same for people from India. We're at a situation here in which we're going to have to come to grips as Americans with our energy policy. I'm all for the effective ways of bringing about efficiency in the use of all energy. That makes good business sense for a government or for a home, or quite apart from private industries which have been at this with some vigor. And as a matter of fact, we have worked to try to bring about alternative forms of energy of all sorts. And I think with some small effects, and hopefully larger ones as they come along. One of the things that we talked about with carbon motors that the mayor has mentioned is that this is, I believe, a sizable advance and an important one for our energy department to assist and help develop. But in any event, the president was dismayed perhaps by this demonstration. He was further disturbed when many people from various labor unions came to the White House and said, Mr. President, before you get any ideas about this, these are jobs now. And Americans want more jobs now, not in the hereafter. So the President made a decision, namely that the State Department should study this some more. And furthermore, that he really would prefer to get a response back from the State Department, say in February 2013. Now, mind you, this is a few weeks or months after the November 2012 election, but that's where the President left it. Now, at this point, with the help of Neil Brown, a very gifted staff member we have who is an expert on energy issues, I drafted a very simple bill which said simply, Mr. President, you must make up your mind in the next 60 days. And the only reason that would be valid for rejecting the pipeline would be a national security or defense situation, which I don't see on the horizon on this particular issue. The President, I suppose, took a look at that, but all sorts of people offer bills all the time. The one difference was, on this particular occasion, when I had the press conference announcing the bill, most of my fellow Republicans leapt up onto the stage to be a part of the picture. And they endorsed the bill. There were 44 co-sponsors before the day was out. And one brave Democrat joined that group. And I would just say simply that at this point, members in the House said, we've thought about this, but the language in the Lugar bill looks pretty good to us. So they offered that, so there was equivalent bills in both houses. It still might have stayed right there, except at the end of the year, there was a strong demand to have another 60-day extension of the Social Security cut from 6% to 4%, and the money for unemployment compensation, and the money to pay the Medicare doctors. So as a result, in essence, both houses passed a bill, and the Lugar bill was included in that as an amendment. And the President, therefore, had to sign it. Whereupon the President took several days, but said again that I reject the thought of having to make a decision about this. I am going to continue to pursue study with the State Department and maybe others, and perhaps by February of 2013, we may come to a conclusion. Now, at this point, I've offered another bill, which simply cuts the President out of the picture and says we're going to proceed with this thing. And the House of Representatives passed language that included this last Thursday, a week ago, as a part of the transportation bill, an amendment to that bill. A transportation bill, very complex, deals with highways, railways, many things that many people feel we should have been thinking about for a while and have not. May or may not pass the House, right apart from the equivalent measure, very complex in the Senate. But if it's stalled, we'll try another bill that has some hope of passage. In essence, I mention all of this because I hear accurate assessments from many Hoosiers that Congress is in gridlock, that Congress simply is a failure, doesn't move, doesn't do anything. Well, there's some, at least momentary truth to that, but I'm here to tell you that at least this is one very active senator who is pushing and shoving to make certain that in one form or another, using whatever parliamentary skills we have, that we have some action, because we have to have the oil and the energy, and we need to have the jobs. And we need to have a relationship with a friendly country, Canada. Prime Minister, imagine, came to see our President. And quietly asked, Mr. President, what about this pipeline? Well, the President told him the same thing I've told you. Whereupon the Prime Minister of Canada had a trip scheduled to China. He made sure that he took it promptly. And the Chinese offered to buy every drop of the Canadian oil, straight over the Pacific. It's that kind of a world. Now, let me just add one more thought, and that is that as we're discussing the budget and current legislation, we know that the Supreme Court is going to hear arguments on the constitutionality of either one or more provisions of the Obamacare bill, the health insurance bill that was passed. This bill took the life out of the first year of the Obama administration in the Senate. We discussed seemed virtually nothing else. We were there on weekends, Saturdays and Sundays, many votes held at 3 a.m. in the morning and so forth, largely because of Republicans objecting to the legislation. We were filibustering at every stage, every amendment. The cloture was called, that is the resolution to stop debate. 30 hours of debate would go on. At that point, if the vote came at 3 a.m. on Sunday morning, so be it. It was not until Christmas Eve the final vote occurred. There were 60 Democrats, 40 Republicans. Everybody had to be there for virtually every vote to stop the Republicans and to ensure that there were 60 votes to pass the bill. All of us were there on Christmas Eve, despite unhappiness about not being home with families and so forth, and it passed. Now, we have found that most of the sections of the bill have yet to be written. The rules are being written now, would not come into play until 2013, 2014. But some of what has occurred has created at least attorneys general around the United States suing to find unconstitutional either a part of the law, maybe the individual mandate or other parts. And I have no way of how the court will rule in May or June. My own view is that I'm hopeful we will repeal the Obama bill, that we will start again on a constructive way in which there is some hope of paying for it. If all of this is adopted, as now is, almost all of the discussion about deficits, budgets, and so forth really goes out the window, despite protestations that somehow the President's medical insurance bill would save money at some point. So this is a very serious issue, but it's one that may be fought out in still another way. I saw our Attorney General from Indiana. He will be there in the court at the time of the argumentation, will not participate as an arguer, but certainly will be cheering on those that are supporting the Attorneys General. Now, these are tough domestic issues that do have a foreign content. But I take the liberty of the introduction to make one more point. And that is that 20 years ago, I did have an opportunity to work with a Democrat, Sam Nunn of Georgia, who was chairman then of the Armed Services Committee of the Senate. We had been sent by President Reagan to Geneva, Switzerland, when the Soviet Union first decided it wanted to begin to negotiate reduction in nuclear armaments. Things did not move very rapidly, and as a matter of fact, until the Soviet Union fell, collapsed, there was not any movement to speak of. But at that point, a good number of Russians, civilian and military, who had been involved in those talks and with whom we had visited in the intervening 5 years, came to Washington. And they told Sam and me, you folks in the United States have spent trillions of dollars trying to contain our weapons. And now we're in a position where we need your money to destroy them. We don't have any money. We're bankrupt. We do have these weapons, and as a matter of fact, they are a danger to us because they may lead to accidental explosions or to proliferation steals and various other things. It was a total counterintuitive moment in history that a great superpower would invite the other superpower to help disarm it, and to do so promptly. And we rose to the challenge. The last day of Congress, 1991, we passed the Non-Nuclear Cooperative Threat Reduction Act and proceeded then to work through the years. There were at that time 13,300 nuclear warheads on missiles aimed at the United States. Every one of our military installations and most of our major cities. Any one of those warheads had the power to eliminate the city of Indianapolis, wipe it off the map. We might not have been aware we had an existential problem of that sort, but it doesn't negate the facts of life that that's the predicament we were in. And we were lucky to move through it. Now I mention all of this because I've been working not only with Sam, but monitoring this. The trust but verify thing is verified. And beyond that, we have worked on a plant in Sucha in Russia, out in Siberia, where they have destroyed now about half of the nerve gas canisters and shells that were a part of the Russian picture as chemical and biological weapons. And the Russians are working with us to get down to zero as we are working through our own stocks of nerve gas in the United States. Now, this is not on the charts for anybody. If you ask someone in Indiana or America what are the most important issues, and I appreciate that. But let me just simply add, as a summary of all of this, that I take it very seriously, and I think most of you do too. And I hope that I'll have the privilege of continuing to fight this thing through with, by and large, cooperative Russians, although not always that way, with other countries such as Kenya, Uganda, Burundi, where I went at the behest of Secretary Gates last year to try to work with those governments to help us fortify laboratories that have pathogens of Marburg disease, of anthrax, of other situations that could cause a plague for those countries, but that are more easily brought into the United States to create havoc in our country in a way in which we're unlikely anymore to be threatened by an intercontinental ballistic missile. This is the world in which we work. Thank goodness our own intelligence services are getting a lot better, and we are supporting them. They are tracking pretty well the terrorists, not only in Al-Qaeda, but Al-Shabaab and other organizations. And therefore, arrests are made as promptly as possible before any of these persons terrorize any city in America or any Americans that we can prevent the difficulty. This is like the world in which we live. These are the sorts of battles that we need to fight. And that's why, to get back to our first point, we have to have a strong economy and strong budgetary features. We do need to have as much energy independence as we can have. We do need to come back to much fuller employment so there is hope in our country for families, for the future, and incentives for our young people to progress. I just thank each one of you so much for the leadership that you give under very stressful conditions. I pledge to do the best I can to work with you on very specific projects that are important to this chamber and this city. And I look forward to many more visits in the future. I say more power to all of you. Thank you so very much.
We have, I know you've got plaques and awards in your office that hold walls up. I've seen them. We have a very small token tonight to present to you, just to remember this time. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
At this time, I would like to introduce to you Melissa McNee.
Thank you. Difficult act to follow, but thank you very much, Senator Lugar, for taking time to be with us this evening. I appreciate it. Thank you, Katrina, for planning a wonderful evening for us, and to the diplomats. We appreciate all the hard work and effort that you put forth. At this time, I'd like to just take a minute to recognize the 2011 Board of Directors. If you would please stand when I call your name. Donna Stern, outgoing President. Jeremiah Church, our Treasurer. Ryan Baker. Ron Coldiron. Lori Crow. Jesse Kelly. And Bob Stewart. And lastly, Sharon Cranfield. Thank you all for serving in 2011. introduce, or recognize rather, some of our outgoing board members. We did have 4 board members that are leaving the board, 3 board members that are leaving the board. Bob Stewart, if you would come forward, please. Jesse Kelly and Sharon Cranfield. Thank you, Jesse.
Very much.
Thank you for serving on the board. Next, I'd like to introduce Donna Stern. Donna, will you come forward? Donna was our president last year, as you all know, and she did mention that Katrina does make it easy, so hopefully Katrina will make it easy for me this year. But we do appreciate Donna's hard work. Donna put in a lot of hours serving on the board, and we just want to recognize her and thank her for serving as president last year. Okay, at this time I'd like to turn it over to Ron Kohlheiner. Ron is going to come forward and we're going to start our awards program at this time. Ron will be presenting the Beautification Award that's sponsored by Kohlheiner Plumbing.
Thank you, Melissa. We all know how important first encounters are, and we attribute those usually with the personal appearances of each other, meeting someone. But there is a first appearance that happens far beyond meeting each other. And when someone drives across our city and looks at our businesses and the ridings across our town, they get a first impression. And this Beautification Award makes mention of that first impression. And if you're just commuting from town to town or whatever, you might not ever have a chance of entering the doors of our businesses. You might not ever have the chance of meeting that proprietor that owns that place. But you make an opinion of that shop or that store or whatever it is when you drive by. And that's what this Beautification Award is all about tonight. Those that took pride in our town, pride in their business, and the Chamber certainly wants to commend those that have. The nominees this year for the Beautification Award is Clark's Eastside Market, Fayette Tool and Engineering, K&K Electric, Lighthouse Financial Services, Tokyo Japanese Steakhouse, I'm sorry. And the winner is the Lighthouse Financial Services. Are they here? Congratulations. Thank you very much. All right. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I'd like to introduce you to Shirley Rich, who will be presenting the humanitarian award. Shirley.
Good evening, and it has been an especially good evening for me. A lot of you out bidding on those auction items. I try to help the economy by bidding and spending all I can. And I had a nice surprise. Thanks, Rick. The Humanitarian Award exemplifies caring and giving to the community. The nominees are, and please stand when I call your name. I won't be able to see you because it's too bright. Sharon Cranfield, Ambassadors for Christ, Holly Dunn, Jane Gazelle, Sherry Kendall, Addie Muston, and Gary O'Neill. Each of you should consider yourself a winner, because it is a privilege and an honor to be nominated. But we only have one trophy. The winner this year organized the Community Coats Program, which this year distributed over 300 coats to needy men, women, and children. Another project was Walk a Mile in Her Shoes, which draws attention to domestic violence and raises money to fund Crossroads Shelter. She is the director of this. She organized the Royal Ball, a dinner to benefit the House of Ruth, where she serves as director. The house was open for women with addictions who were coming out of jail or prison. She also organized the Gentle Christmas Project, which helped over 100 families have Christmas. She is consistently involved in the community and is director of the Whole Family Community Initiative. This year's award goes to Sharon Cranwell.
Congratulations, Sharon. Would you like to speak a few words?
It's a great honor, and it's easy to serve in the community, because I love this community, and I really appreciate this, and I just want to thank God. And I couldn't do this without one person. Can't do all this. It takes everybody helping, and I just thank everyone that helps make these charitable things happen.
Thank you.
And now for someone who needs no introduction, Tom Stearns is going to present the Service Award.
Thank you so much. This award recognizes the contributions of an individual or group who has made an outstanding contribution to our community. By helping and assisting others, this award amplifies caring and giving to our community. The nominees are Andy Benz, Bikers Church, Sharon Cranville, Jane Gazelle, Grandview Pharmacy, Pat Moore, and Ruby Seiler. We thank all of you for making our community a better place. The winner tonight is Grandview Pharmacy. Grandview Pharmacy was founded by Ellen Hood Company and renamed Grandview Pharmacy in 1960. And I have to be real honest with you, that was my first job. It wasn't in 1960 though. But it was working down at Hedges Drugstore when coats were 5 cents. And Howard Eldridge at that time was just beginning to purchase Elliott Hood Drugstore, and he gave me a hard time. And I think I worked for hard. How many times now, Howard? 2, 3, and I told him before he retires I'll work for him again. Because of the proximity to the Grandview School District is why it was named Grandview Pharmacy. In 1969, Howard Eldridge and Betty, his lovely wife, and all of the Eldridge family purchased the pharmacy and relocated to 2424 Park Road, where it conducted business until 1987. Grandview Pharmacy grew rapidly during the 1980s, necessitating a move to a larger facility in 1987. The pharmacy was moved to 2230 Park Road, where an existing structure was remodeled. The pharmacy is still located there today, although although it does not have the fountain codes. Through the years, our single neighborhood pharmacy has grown to 3 local retail locations and 2 long-term care locations in Indianapolis and Fort Wayne. Combined, they offer many traditional pharmacy services and diverse retail products. Future growth plans include Tennessee, Kentucky, Michigan. Locally, Grandview employs 58 employees and an additional 112 employees company-wide. Again, never forgetting our neighborhood pharmacy roots and the expectation of great personal service that comes with it. Every year, Grandview Pharmacy sponsors the Special Olympics, the Holiday Giving Tree, and other activities in our community. They have donated $8,500 in local sponsorships and over $6,200 in non-for-profit small business support. The combined contributions were over $14,700 locally and over $30,000 additionally statewide. So it is my great honor to give this award to Howard and Betty Eldridge.
Whenever Donna gets ready to retire, I'll hire one more time. So that'll be her last time.
At this time, I would like to introduce Kelly Pierce. Kelly will be giving out our Small Business Award.
The News Examiner is very honored to be the sponsor of the Small Business of the Year Award. The criteria for the award is that the small business or entrepreneur can demonstrate and exemplify the American dream of free enterprise and success. The award is given to the business that has and continues to make a sufficient contribution to the community and the surrounding area. Though its integrity and through its charity, a Small Business of the Year entrepreneur should provide a spirit and character that involves all of the community as much as possible. This year's nominees include Clark's Eastside Market, Grandview Pharmacy, Kemper CPA Group, Little Caesars, Quick Mix, Templeton Plumbing, Tokyo Japanese Steakhouse, and Yarian Eye Care Center. Get to my speech part. I'll make sure I promise. This year's winner truly exemplifies the characteristics that are outlined in this award. This Connersville born and raised young professional has returned to Connersville after college and laid his roots down here for the community. Of course, we know we're talking about Dr. Yari, who's also involved in the Connersville Bluegrass Music Association, although I've never seen him play an instrument. And he is also involved in the Fayette County, Indiana Arts Council. And he is very involved in the community, and he is striving to make our community better. And what I think is so very important is that in order for our community to grow, I think we need as many of our young people to go get educated if they don't want to stay in Connersville, and come back to Connersville and allow our community to move forward and allow us to show the young people that are in our community now, this is a place to come back to, this is your home. So it's an honor to introduce my friend and a true business professional for Small Business of the Year, Dr. Henry.
If you haven't seen my office yet, this is a great award that we have done in the office. It's really nice. But yeah, it was definitely a long haul. I went through college, and of course, when you're done with college, you think that's the end of it. You think the race is done, but of course, you find out it's just beginning. But as many of you know, I came came back and couldn't be happier that I did, and worked with Dr. Weiner in Christian's practice. He was in a small 800 square foot office, and of course you could see right on the wall, and see that was going to take me very far into the future. And so I took a gamble and took a risk, and of course, built the office and now, and couldn't be happy that I did it. We've been in it for 5 weeks now, and it's been a great success so far. So if you're not a patient, if you're kind of interested in it, please stop by and take a look. It's really nice to do that building. I hope that your counters are well by, building it. But, it's tough to make it through those times, and sometimes you second guess yourself when you're building a building like that, and it takes the economy. But, you got a big family to support you, my dad, my stepmom Jill, of course, my girlfriend Taylor. She's laughing. But, it makes it easier. But I'd like to thank my general contractor, of course, all the subcontractors, and if you have any recommendations or need any recommendations, I'm more than happy to give them to you. They were, by the way, they were all over work, all except for one contractor, they're all over work there. So, I'm building, and it's doing great. And, thank you very much. Thank you for your support. I appreciate it.
I think you could see if you ever had any question about what kind of quality of person we have in our community and we're raising in our community, that answers your question right there. Really does. Melissa Mann, just want to get our humanitarian interview. Citizen of the year.
All right. Thank you. And congratulations to all the winners so far. First, before I present this year's Citizen of the Year award, I would like to take the opportunity to recognize some of our past Citizens of the Year. We have several of them here with us this evening. If you would please stand. Melvin Dice, who is our 1980 Citizen of the Year. Thank you for coming. Lynn Bastion, our 1993 Citizen of the Year. And Lynn's here in the very back. Joel Long, our 1995 Citizen of the Year. And Brad Wilson, our 2003 Citizen of the Year. It's hard to see up here, so I'm not sure where they're sitting. Carl Hilton, our 2004 Citizen of the Year. He's here somewhere. There he is, I see him. And Pete Bell, our 2007 Citizen of the Year. And John Baker, our 2009 Citizen of the Year. Hi, John. And then lastly, Donna Stern, our 2011 Citizen of the Year. And also our past president. The Citizen of the Year is described as an individual who exemplifies leadership, integrity, and commitment to the community. The nominees for this year can all be described as holding that quality. The nominees for this year include Sharon Cranfield, Charlie Hughes, Bill Long, Jim Flum, Shirley Rich, Michael Sparks, and Leonard Urban. Congratulations to all of you for being nominated. This year's Citizen of the Year was the oldest of 5 boys born in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. After graduating high school, he made a 12-hour trip to Indiana with a family he barely knew with the goal to obtain an education. He later moved in with the Woodrow family and worked as an apprentice at their funeral home. Approximately 1 year later, he enrolled in the Indiana College of Mortuary Science in Indianapolis. He lived and worked at the Conkle Funeral Home while attending school. After receiving his funeral director's license, he moved to Hagerstown and worked at Howard & Son Funeral Home. In December of 1966, he purchased the Thompson Brown Funeral Home and moved to Connersville shortly afterward. In 1967, he was elected as a Fayette County coroner, serving a total of 11 years. He was also instrumental in the formation of the Fayette County Cemetery Association. In addition to his lifelong career in his local funeral business, he has served as a member of the Lions Club, Fayette County Tourism Board, Fayette County Extension Board, member of the Economic Development Group, the Indiana Funeral Directors Association, a member of the Scottish Rite, the Murat Temple, and a member of the First United Methodist Church. He previously served as a member of the Connersville City Council and currently serves as the city's mayor. The list of memberships and accomplishments is only a portion of the various boards and organizations that he has served on at the national, state, and local levels. For your leadership, dedication, and volunteerism, I present this year's Citizen of the Year to Mayor Leonard Urban.
They voted for this and moved next to my office. One day somebody came in and said, "What's that box? What are they voting on?" I said, "Oh, they're voting on the awards over there." And I told Katrina, "I'm going to start the ballot box." But I didn't, I promise you. She kept this a secret, and I can't believe it, because we worked together every single day. And she kept it a secret. And I asked my wife, I said, "Did you know this?" She said, "No, I didn't know this." You were right. This is an honor tonight, really, to receive this. I appreciate it, because my good friend Senator Lugar is here to witness this. And all of you, thank you so much. And to my employee who puts up with me, I told Parker this morning at breakfast, I said, it wouldn't be a lot of fun living with me all the time. And when you think about that sometimes, think about it, your wife's got to live with you all the time. So thank you so much, all of you. I really do appreciate it. And thank you, Virginia.
Congratulations to everybody. I'm so happy for you all. I'm also happy for the nominees because just getting nominated is a true honor. Thank you, Senator Lugar, for coming here today. I totally appreciate it. It's been a wonderful event. It's been an honor to have you here. This concludes this evening's ceremony. I do want all of the winners to please stay here, meet up here in the podium so that we can get some pictures. And I wish you all have a very safe and happy evening.